Have you ever noticed how some men slowly destroy their own respect, not by losing everything, but by the way they speak? They are not ruined by lack of talent or lack of opportunity. They are ruined sentence by sentence, excuse by excuse, every time they open their mouths and show the world how weak they really are. A man does not reveal his strength when things are easy. He reveals it in the way he reacts, the way he explains himself, the way he chooses his words when life presses him. If his tongue is undisciplined, his mind is undisciplined. If his words are soft, fragile, and full of escape routes, his character is the same. Weak men think power is something you show with noise. They talk over people, they fill silence with opinions, they rush to defend themselves at the slightest criticism. They brag about what they will do, they dramatize what they already did, they decorate themselves with big speeches about discipline, grind, mindset. But look closely. The louder they speak, the more they usually hide. Noise is a costume. Real strength does not beg to be seen. A truly grounded man does not need to convince anyone that he is strong. His presence speaks before his mouth makes a sound. A Stoic-minded man understands that words are not toys, they are tools. Every phrase you repeat becomes a thread in the fabric of your identity. Every answer you give trains your mind to be either a victim or a warrior. This is why you must watch carefully the things you say when you are tired, when you feel attacked, when you feel misunderstood. These moments reveal who you really are. A disciplined man uses them to sharpen his character. A weak man uses them to protect his ego and stay the same. In this video, we are going to expose 8 phrases that weak men love to say. They sound harmless on the surface. Some even sound confident or deep. But every time you say them, you cut off a part of your own power. 2 of them will appear in this first part. As you listen, do not think about other people. Think about yourself. Ask honestly, where do I hide behind these words? Where have I chosen comfort instead of growth? Where have I spoken like a child when life was calling me to speak like a man? The first phrase is subtle, and that is what makes it so dangerous. It appears when someone offers you advice, correction, or knowledge, and you feel your chest tighten, your pride wake up. Instead of listening, you rush to say, "I already know that." These 4 words are poison. They sound like confidence, but they are really fear dressed up as certainty. When a man says "I already know that," most of the time he does not know. He only remembers a fragment of an idea he once heard, twisted and mixed with his own laziness. What he really means is, "I do not want to look like a beginner again. I do not want to admit that I could be wrong. I care more about protecting my image than actually growing." A wise man lives in the exact opposite direction. He can hear something he has heard 100 times and still ask himself, "Where am I failing to live this?" Instead of saying "I already know that," he asks, "Where am I not practicing that?" He understands that information is nothing without embodiment. Reading about discipline is not discipline. Talking about focus is not focus. Reposting quotes about strength is not strength. A man who collects ideas but never applies them is not wise. He is a well-decorated coward, hiding behind knowledge he never had the courage to turn into action. When you say "I already know that," you close the door of your own mind. You stop the flow of correction, experience, and insight that could change your life. You convince yourself that because you have heard something before, you have already mastered it. But look at your routines. Look at your habits. Look at your reactions when someone disrespects you, ignores you, or doubts you. Are you acting like someone who truly knows how to control himself, or like someone who only learned the vocabulary of self-control? Many men are fluent in the language of self-improvement, but completely illiterate in the practice of it. The first step to becoming a stronger man is killing the arrogance behind "I already know that." You must be willing to become a student again every single day. Even if you have read the books, watched the videos, listened to the podcasts, you must ask, where am I still weak? Where does my behavior contradict what I claim to know? The moment you admit you do not fully know, your mind opens, and growth becomes possible again. The moment you cling to "I already know that," you freeze yourself in place and call that paralysis wisdom. So the next time those words rise in your throat, stop them. Swallow your pride instead. Listen fully. Ask questions instead of defending your ego. Take one idea, just one, and apply it with brutal consistency. Wake up earlier. Cut one toxic habit. Stay calm in one conversation where you would usually explode. That is how you prove to yourself that you are not just collecting concepts. You are forging character. A strong man would rather look like a beginner and grow than look like a know-it-all and stay small. The second phrase that weak men love to repeat is just as destructive, and it often walks hand in hand with the first. After they say "I already know that" and refuse to learn, they face the consequences of their choices and immediately run to the next refuge. "It is not my fault." This sentence sounds like self-defense, but at its core, it is surrender. Every time a man says "it is not my fault," he is pushing responsibility away from himself and handing away his power with it. He might feel safe in that moment, but he is building a cage around his own life, bar by bar, excuse by excuse. Life will always give you unfair situations. People will lie. Plans will fall apart. Circumstances will betray your expectations. A weak man uses all of that as evidence that he is a victim of the world. He gathers his disappointments like trophies and uses them to justify his bitterness. But a stronger man, a stoic-minded man, understands that responsibility is not about blame. It is about ownership. He knows he cannot control everything that happens, but he can always control how he responds, what he learns, and what he decides to do next. When you say "it is not my fault," you might be technically right. Maybe you did not start the fire. Maybe you did not create the chaos. Maybe someone else truly did something wrong. But if you stop there, if you use that fact to avoid action, you stay exactly where that situation left you. You become a prisoner of other people's decisions. You sit inside the damage and call it destiny. Responsibility does not mean you caused the problem. It means you choose to be the one who will face it, learn from it, and move forward. A man who constantly repeats "it is not my fault" is telling the world, and more importantly himself, that he is not the main character of his own story. He is an extra, waiting for someone else to fix the script. Over time, this destroys his confidence. He starts to believe that nothing is under his control. His standards drop. His effort fades. His respect for himself disappears, because deep down he knows he has abandoned his post. He has left the steering wheel of his life on the floor and decided to just roll with whatever happens. Taking responsibility, on the other hand, rebuilds a man's spine from the inside out. The moment you say "I did not choose what happened, but I will choose my response," something shifts. Your back straightens. Your mind clears. Instead of asking "why did this happen to me?" you begin to ask "what can I do with this? What can I learn? How can I adapt? What part of this mess can I claim as my training ground?" That is the mindset that turns setbacks into fuel instead of chains. And that mindset only appears when you kill the habit of hiding behind "it is not my fault." If this message is hitting you, pause for a second and hit the like button, and subscribe so this kind of discipline reaches more men who need it. Some men go through life believing they are strong simply because they manage to sound confident. But confidence made of noise is hollow. A man reveals his true foundation not when he stands tall, but when his words betray the truths he refuses to face. Weak men expose themselves with the phrases they defend the most. And the third one is one of the loudest. "I don't care what anyone thinks." A weak man loves to announce this as if it were a badge of strength. He raises his chin, stiffens his voice, and throws these words like a shield. But listen closely and you'll hear the trembling behind it. No man who truly doesn't care needs to broadcast it. Indifference expressed loudly is not indifference. It is insecurity wearing a mask. A man who constantly repeats, "I don't care what anyone thinks," usually cares more than everyone else. He is shaped by approval, haunted by judgment, and terrified of appearing weak. So he tries to prove his emotional independence with sound, instead of with action. But pretending you are unaffected by people's opinions is not strength. It is fear disguised as rebellion. The strong man does not deny that opinions exist. He simply refuses to be governed by them. He listens when wisdom is hidden inside a critique, and he ignores what comes from ignorance or malice. He doesn't let praise inflate him or insults define him. His compass is internal, not borrowed. His decisions come from his principles, not from the shifting expectations of the world. He understands that the moment an opinion controls your peace, you are no longer free. Weak men try to look unbothered. Strong men simply are. Weak men declare independence. Strong men live it quietly, because real indifference does not need an audience. And then comes another phrase, one that silently kills a man's character from the inside out. If the third phrase hides insecurity behind arrogance, the fourth hides laziness behind identity. That's just how I am. This is the anthem of stagnation, one of the most dangerous sentences a man can say. Weak men repeat it whenever life demands change, discipline, or maturity. Whenever their behavior hurts themselves or others, whenever growth requires discomfort, they retreat behind these 5 words. That's just how I am is not personality, it's surrender. It is the resignation of a man who fears evolving more than he fears staying small. He convinces himself that his flaws are unchangeable traits. If he is impatient, he calls it natural. If he is emotional and reactive, he calls it just my style. If he lacks discipline, he calls it how my mind works. But none of this is truth. It is comfort disguised as fate. A strong man treats his weaknesses as raw material. He does not run from his tendencies, he trains them. If he is impulsive, he learns to pause. If he is emotional, he learns to master the surge instead of drowning in it. If he has a temper, he learns restraint and replaces reaction with clarity. The man who says, I can change who I become, grows new layers of mental armor every day. Modern culture teaches men to worship labels. Introvert, extrovert, overthinker, emotional, logical. But these labels are not prisons. They are starting points. Personality is not a verdict handed down to you. It is a pattern that can be broken, refined, and rebuilt. Every time you act against your weaker nature, you weaken its control. Every time you choose discipline over comfort, you chip away at the old version of yourself. Weak men cling to, that's just how I am, because it absolves them of responsibility. It frees them from the effort of change. But the effort they avoid now becomes the suffering they face later. The man who refuses to evolve becomes predictable, fragile, and easy to break. His life becomes a loop, repeating the same problems because he insists on being the same person. A stronger man sees himself as unfinished. He understands that identity is not fixed, it is forged. His flaws are not excuses, they are assignments. He does not hide behind his nature. He shapes it. He does not defend his limitations. He outgrows them. That's just how I am, is the grave where potential is buried. The moment a man stops saying it, he resurrects the possibility of who he could become. Every man reaches moments where pressure exposes his true nature. Some rise, others collapse, but most simply drift, not because life is cruel, but because they've trained themselves to speak like men who expect time to wait for them. Weak men don't break dramatically. They decay silently, one postponed decision at a time. And nothing reveals this slow decline more clearly than the next phrase on our list. I'll do it later. These 4 words are the quiet assassination of a man's potential. They look harmless, almost responsible, as if later were a real place where discipline magically waits for you. But later is a myth. Later is a ghost. Later is the place where dreams go to die. Weak men love the idea of improvement, but they fear the discomfort of action. So they delay. They promise themselves that tomorrow will be different, that next week they'll start fresh, that the perfect moment is just around the corner. But days become months, and months become years. Soon the man who once planned to become strong is left with nothing but regret disguised as nostalgia. I'll do it later is the lie that allows a man to stay the same while pretending he's changing. It gives him the illusion of intention without the burden of effort. He feels productive while doing nothing. He talks about discipline while avoiding it. He builds a future in his imagination but refuses to build it in reality. A stronger man understands a brutal truth. Motivation is unreliable. Time is unforgiving. And discipline does not wait for perfect conditions. Discipline is built in the now, in the moment you least feel like acting. When the mind says later, the disciplined man answers now. Not because he enjoys discomfort, but because he respects the cost of delay. The difference between weak men and strong men is simple. Weak men plan. Strong men execute. Weak men dream. Strong men begin. Weak men rely on mood. Strong men rely on principle. Every time you act now instead of later, you sharpen your will. And every time you choose later, you dull it until nothing remains but excuses wrapped in hope. The next phrase is equally destructive, but in a different way. While "I'll do it later" kills progress through avoidance, the sixth phrase kills self-respect through self-abandonment. Nobody respects me. Weak men love to complain about respect. They treat it as something the world owes them, something that should fall from the sky simply because they exist. They say, "Nobody respects me," with bitterness, frustration, and self-pity, never stopping to understand the deeper meaning of these words. Respect is not a gift. It is not granted by chance, genetics, or luck. Respect is earned through behavior, especially behavior when no one is watching. A man who repeats, "Nobody respects me," reveals something he doesn't intend to admit, that he has not been respecting himself. Respect is not something you seek. It is something you radiate. It begins in the private moments, the small promises you keep to yourself, the standards you refuse to compromise, the way you hold yourself when no one is there to applaud or judge. Weak men demand respect while living in ways that undermine it. They break their word, then expect loyalty. They speak impulsively, then expect trust. They avoid responsibility, then expect admiration. They allow others to mistreat them, then wonder why people don't take them seriously. Respect is not lost in one dramatic moment. It is surrendered through hundreds of small decisions where a man chooses comfort over character. When a strong man realizes he is not being respected, he doesn't complain. He evaluates. He asks himself hard questions. Have I been consistent? Have I been honest? Have I been disciplined in my actions, my reactions, my habits? Am I living in a way that commands respect, or in a way that begs for approval? Respect is simply the reflection of what you've been practicing. If people treat you lightly, it is because you have taught them to do so. The wise man rebuilds respect from the inside out. He starts with one simple principle: never break a promise to yourself. If you say you will wake up early, wake up early. If you say you will train, train. If you say you will walk away from toxicity, walk away. Consistency creates self-respect. And self-respect creates presence. Presence creates gravity. And gravity pulls respect from the world without needing to raise your voice or demand anything. Weak men want respect to arrive before discipline. Strong men know respect grows from discipline. Weak men say, "Nobody respects me," as a confession of defeat. Strong men say, "I will become a man worthy of respect," as a declaration of transformation. Because in the end, respect is never truly lost. It is only reflected. And the reflection always begins within. Life has a way of exposing every illusion a man builds for himself. No matter how carefully he hides his weaknesses, no matter how loudly he speaks to disguise his fears, sooner or later reality forces him to confront the truth. And few truths reveal themselves more clearly than through the next phrase. A phrase weak men use whenever life becomes heavier than they expected, whenever the world stops playing along with their expectations. Life is unfair. This is the anthem of men who feel entitled to comfort. It is the cry of someone who believed that difficulty was a personal attack, instead of a natural part of existence. When a weak man faces adversity, he assumes the world has singled him out. He believes he was cheated, ignored, mistreated, cursed with circumstances no one else has experienced. He places himself at the center of the universe and blames the universe for refusing to cooperate. But life was never designed to be fair. Fairness is a fantasy sold to children, not a principle that governs reality. Strong men understand this deeply. They know suffering is not a punishment, it is a test. They know challenges do not appear to break them, but to reveal the parts of themselves they have ignored. A man who expects fairness will resent every setback. A man who expects adversity will grow from it. Weak men curse the storm. Strong men learn to sail. This is the difference. The weak man sees difficulty as proof that the world is against him. The strong man sees difficulty as training. While the weak man asks, "Why me?" the strong man asks, "What is this shaping in me?" Weakness turns adversity into bitterness. Strength turns adversity into refinement. Every trial carries a lesson. Every betrayal teaches detachment. Every loss teaches resilience. Every unfair moment reveals where you still lack discipline, patience, or emotional control. A man becomes unbreakable not because life treated him gently, but because life forced him to grow harder than his circumstances. The weak collapse under the weight of their story. The strong rise because of it. And when you stop expecting fairness, something powerful happens. You become impossible to manipulate, impossible to defeat, impossible to discourage. Life doesn't need to be fair for you to become great. It only needs to challenge you, and challenges will never be in short supply. Then we reach the final phrase. A phrase that weak men love because it frees them from the responsibility of choice. A phrase that turns them into spectators of their own lives. I don't have a choice. This is the quiet surrender of a man who has stopped fighting. It is the voice of someone who has let circumstances chain his will. Weak men say, "I don't have a choice," because it absolves them of accountability. If there is no choice, there is no responsibility. If there is no responsibility, there is no pressure. And if there is no pressure, there is no need to grow. But this is the biggest lie a man can tell himself. There is always a choice, even when all options are difficult, even when every path requires sacrifice, even when each direction demands pain. The absence of easy choices does not mean the absence of choice. A strong man knows this. He understands that every decision shapes his character. Every sacrifice builds his strength. Every hard path he chooses expands who he becomes. Weak men say, "I don't have a choice," because they fear the consequences of choosing. Strong men say, "I will choose the path that aligns with who I want to be." Weak men look for escape. Strong men look for the way forward. Weak men freeze when faced with discomfort. Strong men step into it willingly, knowing that growth only exists on the other side. Choice is the birthplace of power. When you decide with intention, you reclaim control of your life. When you accept that your decisions, not your circumstances, define you, everything changes. You stop waiting. You stop wishing. You stop being dragged by fear, laziness, and excuses. You start moving with purpose. And the moment a man stops saying, "I don't have a choice," he becomes a different creature entirely. He becomes someone who shapes life instead of being shaped by it. Someone guided by clarity instead of confusion. Someone worthy of his own respect, and the respect of others. Because in the end, the strongest man is not the one with the easiest path. It is the one who accepts the weight of choice, embraces adversity, and walks forward without excuses. Now that you've reached this point, reflect on each of these 8 phrases. Ask yourself which ones you've repeated, which ones you've hidden behind, which ones have silently held you back. Because your words reveal your mindset, and your mindset shapes your reality. Change the way you speak, and you change the man you become. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment below which of these 8 phrases you want to eliminate from your life starting today.